The village of Ikemba woke up with the sun, not alarms. Nestled in the golden arms of the savannah, life moved to the rhythm of rooster calls, breeze-dancing acacia trees, and elders' laughter that echoed like drumbeats. Here, stories weren't just told, they were lived, sung, and carried on the wind like sacred messages from the ancestors. It was in this humble village that Adana, a bright-eyed 16-year-old with a stubborn streak and too many questions, lived with her uncle and cousin. While others her age practiced dances or fetched water, Adana chased shadows in the bush, asked uncomfortable questions at village meetings, and had once tried to out-debate the village chief. It hadn't ended well, but she had earned Papa Keto's respect. Papa Keto was no ordinary elder. He was the village's keeper of memory, a human archive of folktales, wisdom, and warnings wrapped in a weathered frame, crowned with a halo of silver hair. Every child in Ikemba had sat at his feet at some point, eyes wide, mouths open, listening as he spoke of skywalkers, water spirits, and trees that cried. And then there was Boma, Adana's cousin, same age but polar opposite. Where she questioned, he rolled his eyes. Where she chased stories, he chased goats and quietly dreamt of city life. He believed in only what he could see, touch, or buy in the market. The church that changed everything. The sanctuary of living waters had appeared as suddenly as a rainy season rainbow. One month, the villagers were praying under a mango tree, and the next, a grand white church, with glass windows, polished wooden pews, and a tall steel cross, stood at the edge of Ikemba like a gift from heaven. The man behind it was Reverend Vula. Tall, handsome, and always wrapped in spotless white robes that never seemed to wrinkle, Reverend Vula arrived with a Bible in one hand and an aura of mystery in the other. He spoke with a soft, deep voice that made even the wild dog sit still. People swore his prayers could heal, that rain fell when he lifted his arms, and that a sick baby once opened her eyes after he touched her forehead. He preached of blessings, abundance, and a heaven that starts now. And oh, how the villagers listened. They brought yams, cassava, live chickens, and bags of maize to the altar. Adana counted 13 goats tied up outside the church one Sunday. That's more than the chief owns, she whispered to Boma. It's because the pastor is blessed, Boma replied, stuffing a roasted peanut in his mouth. Why are you always suspicious? Because goats don't come from blessings, Adana said, they come from somewhere, and I want to know where. Strange signs in a peaceful place. It began with the dogs. First, the Kolu family's black dog went missing. Then 2 more from different homes. Not a bark, not a bone. People whispered that the jackals were back. Or maybe leopards. But Papa Keto frowned. No paw prints, no blood. That's no animal. That's something else, he muttered. Then came the lights. At first, they were small flashes. A flicker from the church windows when no one should be inside. A dim glow moving like a lantern at 3 in the morning. Once, a local herder swore he saw blue flames dancing near the altar. Maybe the pastor is praying, some said. At 3 a.m. with ghost lights, others asked. Papa Keto didn't say much. But he started locking his compound earlier than usual. Adana couldn't sleep the night she heard it, the drumbeat. It was faint, slow, almost like a heartbeat. Doom, doom, doom. She sat up in her bamboo bed, ears sharp. It wasn't festival season. No one played drums before dawn. She slipped out of bed, crept past her snoring uncle, and stepped into the cool air. The stars blinked down like they knew a secret. And the sound continued. Not loud. Not close. But calling. Doom, doom, doom. She turned toward the church. The light flickered again. Of dreams and warnings. Did anyone hear drumming last night? Adana asked over breakfast. Boma choked on his boiled yam. No. Maybe you dreamt it. No, it was real. It came from the church. Adana, not everything's a mystery to solve. Maybe Reverend Mvula just likes late-night prayer sessions. She turned to Papa Keto. He was quiet, chewing thoughtfully, before he said, "A drum heard in secret is not meant for dancing, it's meant as a warning." Boma groaned. Here we go again with the riddles. But Adana leaned in. What kind of warning? There was a time, long ago, the elder began, when the forest spoke through drums. Spirits would use sound when they couldn't use words. A drum at dawn could mean a visitor, a birth, or danger. And if it's danger, she asked, then someone must listen before it becomes disaster. That night, Adana packed a bag. A visit to the church grounds. Just before dawn, Adana tiptoed out again. This time, she carried Papa Keto's old lantern and Boma's borrowed slingshot, not that she knew how to use it. The church loomed ahead like a sleeping beast. It was too quiet. No birds. No wind. The drumbeat had stopped. She circled around the back. A soft creaking caught her ear, the small side door was unlocked. Adana's heart pounded. But curiosity pulled her forward. She pushed the door open, wincing at the sound. Inside, the church was normal. Too normal. Clean pews. Sparkling altar. Nothing spooky. Until she heard a click behind her. She spun around. Standing in the doorway was Reverend Mvula. "You're up early," he said, smiling. But his eyes didn't smile. I heard something. A drum. I thought maybe it was a celebration," she stammered. Mvula walked in slowly. "The Lord walks at all hours. Perhaps he was calling you." He stepped closer. "Or perhaps you're one of those who don't understand his ways yet." Adana stepped back. "I should go." "Of course," he said, still smiling. "But remember, child, those who peek behind sacred curtains may not like what they find." Return and reflection. She ran all the way home, barefoot, heart racing. That smile haunted her more than any drumbeat. Papa Keto was waiting. As if he'd known. "You went," he said without looking up from his carved pipe. "I think Reverend Mvula knows something. Or hides something. He's not the first man to wear white and hide shadows," the elder murmured. Boma, overhearing from the corner, finally sighed. "Fine. Maybe you're onto something. But what are you going to do, snoop through holy wine and look for ghosts?" Adana looked out the window toward the tall white church. "No," she said. "I'm going to listen for the drum. And I'm not doing it alone." The dry season was usually a sleepy time in Ikemba. Some cracked earth, distant dust devils, afternoons so quiet that lizards dozed on shaded walls. But ever since the sanctuary of living waters opened its tall iron gates, the village felt as if somebody had struck a great drum and never stopped. People poured in from neighboring towns, on wobbling bicycles, in rattling trucks, even on donkey carts, drawn by rumors that Reverend Mvula could heal sickness the way a breeze cools sweat. Crowds, crutches, and cures. One hot Thursday a woman named Eo arrived in a tattered blue wrapper, carried by her brothers because her legs had not walked for years. Reverend Mvula prayed, placed two flawless hands on her knees, and shouted, "Walk in the name of the living waters." Eo stood, shaky, tear-soaked, but upright. The crowd gasped, then roared. Someone beat a talking drum in wild delight, a traveling merchant threw his hat in the air. By nightfall, every compound fire discussed one subject: miracles. More followed. Children with fevers cooled at one touch. A blind potter claimed he saw colors again. A farmer whose lungs rattled like stones suddenly breathed free and deep. Each story attracted more pilgrims, more offerings. Goats bleated outside the church fence like a strange choir, tied to posts beside baskets of maize, boats of patterned cloth, and shiny tins of imported milk. Twice a week Reverend Vula needed a wagon just to haul everything indoors. Yet inside a Kemba, cracked clay cooking pot still sat empty. Widows, women like Mama Ino, whose only son died in last year's flood, came to Papa Keto's door begging for grain. Their voices trembled with hunger. The church receives plenty, Mama Ino whispered, thin fingers clutching her faded headscarf, but nothing reaches us. Papa Keto's old eyes darkened. He gave what little cassava flour he had but could not provide enough. Later, when Adana and her cousin Boma returned from fetching water, the elder told them what the widow had said. Boma shrugged. Maybe the pastor is saving resources for a big distribution later. Adana frowned. Or maybe the big distribution already happened. Straight into his own kitchen. 2. A suspicious Sunday. The following Sunday service shimmered with heat and hope. Sunlight bounced off Reverend Vula's white robe so brightly it hurt Adana's eyes. He preached from the raised pulpit, voice smooth as river clay. Friends, blessings overflow like the Niger in flood season. Give, and heaven will pour back double. Healing and prosperity are twins, where one goes, the other follows. Shouts of Amen rolled through the sanctuary like thunder across savanna grass. At the end he announced a special healing line. People limped, crawled, or hurried forward. Each received a brief prayer and a firm tap of the pastor's palm. Some collapsed, others danced away squealing. Ushers swept the altar steps clear of coins and folded bills as quickly as rain gutters catch stormwater. Adana watched, jaw tight. Beside her, Boma tried to look skeptical but failed. The joy around him was contagious. During the final hymn, she tugged his sleeve. If his hands are so powerful, why do the widows still starve? Boma opened his mouth, closed it, then sighed. All right. You win. Tonight we trail him, just to see. 3. Moonless paths and masked men. That night the sky was new moon dark, star-crowded but stingy with light. The cousins waited behind Papa Keto's compound until all drums and drunken laughter from nearby yards died down. Boma adjusted the leather sling across his chest that carried a small oil lamp, its flame carefully shielded. Adana carried only a pocket full of pebbles and Papa Keto's old cowbell knife, more charm than weapon. They reached the churchyard just as a door creaked. A lone lantern bobbed, casting Reverend Vula's silhouette across the ground. He lugged 2 burlap sacks, each stuffed so full the seams looked ready to pop. Quiet as puffadas, Adana and Boma slunk behind a low stone wall. The pastor trudged across scrubland toward the western edge of Ikemba, where an enormous, storm-struck baobab leaned like an old man with bad knees. Termites had eaten most of its belly, leaving a hollow big enough to stable 2 goats. In the void glimmered other lanterns, 3, maybe 4. Adana swallowed. He's not alone. Figures emerged, tall men wrapped in rough indigo cloth, faces hidden by cowhorn masks. They carried crates bound with vine rope. No words, only gestures. Reverend Vula set his sacks down. One masked man opened a crate. Boma's jaw dropped when silver glinted in the lantern glow, rows of polished kanzu coins rarely seen this far from big coastal cities. Another crate revealed sealed bottles filled with dark liquid. A man uncorked one, the scent wafted across the night air, opi, a strong herbal medicine sold for high price in distant markets. The pastor and trader swapped their goods quickly. One masked man handed Vula a thick envelope, another loaded his sacks onto a donkey cart hidden behind thorn bushes. The beast brayed softly, then plodded northward on the old trading track. Adana's mind raced. He's selling the villagers' gifts. And what did he receive? Money. Something worse. Sudden crunch of dry leaves, Boma shifted his foot. Lanterns swung toward them. Vula's head snapped up. 2 masked men advanced, blades flashing. Run! Adana hissed. They sprinted, hearts hammering louder than festival drums. In the dark they veered through millet fields, scraped shins on hidden stumps, and dove into a shallow gully. The pursuers paused at the gully rim, muttered curses, then retreated, unwilling to stray too far under star cover. Smugglers fear chance witnesses less than they fear night spirits. Boma lay panting. You do realize, he wheezed, that almost dying counts as our first date with trouble. Adana laughed despite herself, a wild, shaking laugh. And trouble didn't even buy us dinner. 4. The Tale of the Howling Hyena. Near dawn they slipped into Papa Keto's hut. The old man sat awake, whittling a tamarind twig into a flute. I heard hurried feet, he said without looking up. Hyenas or grandchildren, only two kinds roam this late. They told him everything. Papa Keto listened, face carved in candlelight. When they finished, he set the flute aside and spoke in the low, song-like cadence he used for grave stories. Long ago, he began, there was a shepherd who dressed in lambskins so soft that the flock trusted him. By day he guided them to sweet grasses. By night he crept into the hills, shed the lambskins, and became hyena, fangs sharp, coat ragged, belly hungry for lamb. The flock never suspected, for he sang to them in kind voice. But every new moon a lamb vanished. One evening a watchful ewe followed and saw the truth. She returned and gathered the flock beneath the thorn trees. A hyena hides among us, she warned. Many laughed. Our shepherd feeds us. But the ewe taught them to listen at night when the hyena howls. Next new moon they heard the howl rise behind the shepherd's tent. The flock scattered, the hyena, startled, tried to grab lambs but found only thorns. In the morning the shepherd was gone, never seen again, save for a single lambskin found near his tracks. He paused, eyes shining. A hyena in a shepherd's cloak, he said softly, always howls at the new moon. And tonight, he glanced outside, the moon was new. Boma shivered. So Reverend Vula is the hyena. One howl does not prove a beast, Papa Keto replied, but you have heard it. Now you must decide what to do, and do it wisely. 5. Seeds of Resolve. Morning light slipped through reed shutters. Roosters crowed as if unaware a secret sat heaviest in 3 human hearts. Later, at the communal well, village talk erupted. My sister's child walked again, glory be. Yes, but I gave her only ram. Now my barn is bare. The pastor says giving opens heaven. Adana noticed fresh purple bruises on Boma's shins. Proof of their night run, and fresh doubt in his eyes. Miracles or trickery? The question gnawed him. They visited Mama Ino. Her cooking fire was cold, her cupboard empty but for 2 wilted okra pots. Yet only yesterday she had dragged a basket of groundnuts to the church. Tears shimmered in the furrows of her cheeks. I have faith, she said, voice cracking, but faith empties the stomach slowly. Adana's anger fled like dry grass near a spark. That evening, back home, she pulled a tattered school notebook from beneath her mattress. On the first blank page she wrote, Operation Shepherd's Mask. Goal, reveal truth, return gifts to people, protect widows. Steps. Gather witnesses. Document proof, photos, testimonies, ledger if exist. Confrontation plan, public, festival day. Safe place for vulnerable villagers. Backup, Papa Keto's counsel, maybe district chief. She pushed the notebook toward Boma. We can't storm the pulpit with only hunches. We need evidence so heavy even Vula's honeyed words can't lift it. Boma traced step 2 with his finger. Document proof. How? We don't have a camera. And those masked men won't pose for portraits. I have another idea, Adana said, eyes bright. Miracles leave patients. Some of them may know more than they admit. 6. Cracks in the miracles. Over the next week the cousins visited several healed villagers. Eo, the woman who had walked again, was first. They found her resting under a neem tree, legs stretched out. Adana listened gently as Eo spoke, excitement still fresh. But when asked how she felt now, Eo hesitated. Well, the strength comes and goes. Some days I feel the pain returning. Reverend Mvula says it's the devil testing my faith. Next, they met Salim the potter, who once claimed his blind eyes saw color again. Salim admitted privately that colors appeared only minutes after the prayers, then dulled. But it did happen, he insisted. Just for a while. A pattern emerged, temporary flashes of wellness, quickly fading. None dared speak ill of the pastor, they feared losing what little miracle remained or being labeled faithless. Boma scribbled notes, frown deepening. Either he's the world's worst pharmacist, or something unnatural is wearing off. 7. A visitor from afar. News of the wonder-working church traveled faster than harmattan winds. One afternoon a small motorbike spotted into Ikemba carrying Dr. Kechi Okofor, a medical researcher from the regional university. She wore round glasses, a bright green helmet, and curiosity sharper than Adana's. I've heard of spontaneous cures here, she told Papa Keto, after introducing herself politely. I study placebo effects and folk healing herbs. May I observe? Papa Keto's eyes twinkled. Observe all you wish, daughter. Just keep your heart open and your notebook ready. That night, Adana whispered to Boma, a scientist's testimony could be powerful proof. Boma grinned. Maybe she can lend us a camera too. 8. Whisper of the next new moon. Time crawled, suspicion grew. The church kept thriving, its bellies of grain likewise. Yet more widows queued at Papa Keto's door. The old man's stores dwindled to crumbs. Reverend Mvula announced a grand Thanksgiving crusade to occur exactly one lunar cycle after the last new moon service. Pilgrims were to bring thank you gifts for their miracles. He promised an even greater outpouring of blessing. Adana's pulse hammered. Another new moon. Another how? She gathered her allies, Boma, Dr. Kechi, and 3 younger teens who trusted Adana's fire more than Reverend's eloquence. They planned in hushed voices under Papa Keto's mango tree, Tyler cicadas singing overhead. Operation Shepherd's Mask, final plan. Dr. Kechi to observe healings with medical instruments, noting before and after states. Boma and 2 friends to hide near the termite-eaten baobab with charcoal for face darkening, slingshots, and a borrowed pocket camera Dr. Kechi sneaked from the university. Adana to mingle inside church, watch offering collection, record inventory in secret notebook. After dark, team meets Papa Keto by the old stone well to compare findings. If proof solid, confront Reverend Mvula publicly during crusade finale. Papa Keto blessed each step, then added softly, remember, the flock followed you because she spoke truth, not anger. Keep your courage tender. 9. The night before truth. On the eve of the crusade, Ikemba felt as tense as a drum skin stretched for festival. Vendors built makeshift stalls, inns overflowed, distant bonfires shimmered on the horizon. The sanctuary blazed with lanterns, musicians rehearsing victory hymns late into the night. Adana lay on her mat, moonless darkness above, and listened. No drumbeat. Only the restless rumble of the crowd camping by the church fence, eager for tomorrow's wonders. She thought of Eo limping again, of Mama Ino's empty pot, of silver coins gleaming in smugglers' crates. Her fingers found the wooden cross medallion at her throat. She whispered a quiet promise that felt larger than her small bedroom, truth will rise. 10. A hyena's soft footsteps. Long before dawn, Boma tapped Adana's window. Time. His voice trembled between fear and determination. They met Dr. Kechi at the crossroads, where there smelled of dew and faint cooking fires. The researcher adjusted her crossbody bag stuffed with stethoscope, notebook, and camera. You're sure about this, kids? She asked. Adana answered, a shepherd's cloak is no place for a hyena. Boma rolled his eyes but nodded. They parted ways, each toward their assigned task, unaware that behind the church walls Reverend Mvula prayed in a language no one in Ikemba understood, and somewhere beyond the termite-eaten baobab, masked men inspected new crates beneath thorny acacias, preparing for one more silent trade. Night in Ikemba can feel like the bottom of a well. So quiet you hear every cricket decide if it should chirp. Yet on this night, as the grand Thanksgiving crusade reached its fever pitch, a different sound ruled, the rolling thunder of distant drums, voices chanting, and pilgrim campfires popping like corn kernels in hot oil. But away from the lantern-lit churchyard, two shapes slipped through the shadows, Adana and Boma. They moved the way cats do when nobody fills their bowls, fast, low, and hungry for answers. 1. Papa Keto's final clue. Just hours earlier, the cousins had knelt beside Papa Keto in his hut. The old man traced a diagram in dust, an X for the church, a spiral for an ancient footpath, and a lopsided cross at the spiral center. Long before Reverend Vula, he whispered, there stood a mission chapel built by early travelers. Its crypt was rumored to mirror the sky, so spirits could recognize themselves. Folks say the floor collapsed decades ago. If Mvula hides treasure, he hides it there. He tapped the uneven cross. Look for the cross that leans, it marks the mouth of the hidden place. Boma cocked an eyebrow. And you're just telling us now? Papa Keto smiled. I waited for the night you were bold enough to need it. 2. Slipping past the sanctuary. The sanctuary of living water strobed like a heart. Bright floodlights painted the white walls gold, praise singers rattled tambourines until the metal jingles begged for mercy. Inside the main hall, Dr. Kechi scribbled medical notes beneath her shawl. Every so-called miracle flared and fizzled under her stethoscope like a sparkler in the rain. Her job was clear, gather proof. Adana's was different, dive deeper, literally. The cousins circled behind the choir vestry. Boma produced a bent hairpin, liberated from his aunt's vanity, and jimmied a side door. Click. They were in. They crept past stacked hymn books and the overwhelming smell of lemon polish. Muffled through walls came Reverend Mvula's booming sermon. Tonight, the river of blessing overflows. Those who came thirsty would drink until their souls shout hallelujah. Boma rolled his eyes. His metaphors are drowning me. Focus, Adana whispered. Papa Keto said the entrance is under the old foundation stones. At the rear of the sanctuary, a broad wooden trapdoor sat flush to the floor, half hidden by a road carpet. A chunky padlock guarded it. Boma examined the lock, sighed, then produced the hairpin again. You picked one lock already, Adana said. Can you do metal magic twice? Call me locksmith in training. Click. The padlock opened, complaining with a rusty squeal that made both of them flinch. But the choir launched into a cymbal-crashing chorus just then, drowning the noise. They raised the trapdoor. Cool, earthy air drifted up, smelling of old stone and secrets. A steep staircase fell away into darkness. Boma gulped. Ladies first. Adana lit her tiny oil lamp. After you, locksmith. I need your broad shoulders in case of spiders. He grumbled but descended. 3. Into the belly of stone. The stairs ended in a passage tall enough for one person, wide enough for a bad decision. The walls shimmered oddly under lamplight. Are those mirrors? Boma asked. Indeed, slabs of polished metal, or glass hard as ancient eyes, lined both sides. Their reflections looked distorted, taller, leaner, and a bit sinister. Each step echoed twice, as if the mirrors walked with them. Adana touched one panel. Her fingers tingled cold, and the lamp flame flickered blue. She jerked her hand away. Papa Keto said the crypt was built to mirror the sky, she murmured. I thought that was poetic. Turns out it's, well, literal. Ahead, the passage widened into a chamber. At its center stood a stone cross, massive, carved from granite, but tilting several degrees like it had grown tired of standing straight. Its footings looked cracked, as though weight beneath had shifted. Crooked cross, Boma breathed. We found it. but their relief froze when a low hiss slithered through the gloom. 4. The albino python. Against the far wall, a cage of iron bars crashed. Inside coiled an enormous albino python, scales white as sun-bleached bone, eyes pink and unblinking like two cursed paws. It watched them the way a calculation watches numbers. Boma's whisper quivered. That's not just a snake, that's a math problem that ends in -2 humans. Beyond the python lay a mountain of burlap sacks, gifts meant for widows and orphans, plus woven baskets stuffed with coins, bills, and even foreign currency still smelling of distant harbors. So, Adana said, voice shaking, the shepherd does hoard lambs. She took a step forward, the python's thick body tensed, rings of muscle coiling. Boma yanked her back. Snakes before savings, please. 5. Reverend Mvula's true voice. A footstep echoed behind them. They spun. Reverend Mvula stood at the entrance tunnel, arms spread like a dark winged stalk. But this was no gentle shepherd visage, his white robe was gone. He wore a deep crimson cassock embroidered with symbols that snagged the eye and refused to let go, serpents biting tails, eyes without pupils, crooked crosses repeating like endless corridors. His baritone arrived colder than the python's hiss. Children should not wander in grown men's corridors. Yet here you stand, wearing curiosity like armor. It will not save you. Adana steadied her lamp. The people give to help the needy, not to fill hidden vaults. Mvula smiled thinly. True power needs seed to grow. Coins water miracles. He pivoted toward the cage, lifted both hands, and began a chant, words sharp as broken shell, sliding over each other in a language older than midnight. The python rose, half its length upright, head swaying to unseen music. Boma, Adana whispered, that snake is listening. Yeah, he mumbled, and I'm leaving. But the tunnel behind Mvula churned with other figures, choir ushers armed with knob carries, blocking retreat. 6. The necklace that glowed. Adana's palm closed over her mother's wooden cross, worn smooth by years of nervous thumb swipes. As Mvula's chant reached a fever pitch, the necklace warmed, then pulsed with gentle light, soft, steady, defiantly gold against mirror reflections that turned every shadow into claws. The python hesitated, tongue flicking the air, sensing two currents, one dark, one bright. Mvula frowned. His chant faltered. The snake's head swung toward Adana, mesmerized by the glowing pendant. Boma saw his chance. Quick as gossip, he snatched a handful of loose coins from a nearby sack and flung them through the cage bars. Silver clanged against iron, startling the serpent, its coils jerked, rattling the whole cage. In that jaw the crooked cross groaned. Dust rained. A crack zagged up its trunk. Mvula roared, fools! You upset the balance. Balance. Boma backed. It's robbery dressed in religion. 7. Mirror mayhem. The chamber shuddered. Those floor-to-ceiling mirrors flashed like lightning, each reflecting the next until the air seemed full of ghostly duplicates, Mvula chanting, python riding, cousins bracing. Adana's pendant brightened further, and each mirror spat its light back, magnifying the glow until the crooked cross blazed white-hot. Stone hissed. A chunk split off and crashed, smashing a mirror whose shards clattered like angry glass bees. Free of its support, the cross leaned harder, then slammed sideways, bursting the python's cage open. Screech boom. The explosion of iron bars rang through the crypt. The albino snake slithered free, frightened more than furious, and darted toward the darkest corner it could find, the tunnel behind Reverend Mvula. Panicked ushers screamed, stumbling over each other, scattering into the passage. The python followed, tunnel echoing with their terror. Mvula staggered after them, cassock whipping like bloody banners. But before he left, he shouted one last curse. Light fades, little star. Remember, dawn can also burn. Then he vanished. 8. The fall of the treasure hoard. The cracking cross crushed several grain sacks. Corn kernels rolled like marbles across the floor. Coin baskets toppled, spilling rivers of money. But the biggest danger wasn't treasure, it was time. The ceiling groaned as if the crooked cross held more weight than wisdom. Boma grabbed Adana's wrist. This whole cavern might collapse. Adana's heart warred between panic and purpose. We can't leave the offerings here. The people. No use feeding ghosts, he snapped. We leave first, share later. She shook off his hand, darted to snatch a hanging satchel stuffed with folded bills, the easiest load to carry, and shoved it into his arms. Then she scooped a smaller cloth bag of coins and one of grain seed labeled Widow's Fund. Satisfied, she sprinted after him up the stairs as spiderweb cracks chased them along the walls. The last thing she heard was a final snap and an avalanche of stone dust burying the hoard beneath centuries of silence. 9. Surface into chaos. They burst through the trapdoor into a backstage corridor just as the sanctuary erupted in frenzied shouting. Congregants rushed toward exits, the chandeliers swung, some fainted thinking judgment they had jumped the queue. In the crash, Dr. Kechi spotted the cousins, eyes wide behind fog glasses. What happened down there? Short story, crooks, python, and an impending archaeological dig, Boma said, thrusting the satchel at her. Hide this somewhere safe. Dr. Kechi jammed it under her lab coat. You realize Reverend Mvula disappeared mid-sermon and the choir claims a giant snake stole the Holy Spirit. Close enough, Adana panted. A distant boom shook dust from rafters. Pilgrims screamed anew. Boma herded them toward side doors like a shepherd on espresso. Outside, campfires withered under panic. Yet amid the chaos, Adana saw something heart-steadying, Mama Ino helping a limping woman to safety, even while wincing from hunger cramps. The glow of Adana's pendant caught the widow's eye. Mama Ino managed a weak but grateful smile. 10. Aftermath under starlight. By dawn, flames licked clean the sanctuary's roof. Volunteer bucket brigades contained the fire, but half the building was ash. Soldiers from the district outpost arrived, confused, blowing whistles at goats that refused to respect perimeter tape. Reverend Mvula was nowhere. Inside Papa Keto's compound, the resistance gathered, Adana, Boma, Dr. Kechi, 3 teenage helpers, and a half-dozen widows. On a mat lay the rescued satchel and coin bag, meager compared to what had been lost, yet still enough to fill pots and hopes. Dr. Kechi recounted her medical notes. Every miracle reversed within an hour. My data is solid. We can press charges for fraud. Papa Keto nodded. And the district chief cannot ignore that the church's underbelly held treasure and a serpent instead of charity. Adana held the wooden cross, its glow faded to a warm ember, as if mission accomplished, for now. Exhaustion washed over her. Boma threw an arm around her shoulders. You really stirred the anthill tonight, cousin. She managed a crooked grin. I prefer to think I straightened a crooked cross. 11 Echoes in the mirrors. 2 days later, workers found the collapsed crypt. The mirrors down there, half shattered, reflected nothing but rubble and the occasional nervous government inspector. Of the python, only pale shade skin remained, like an empty envelope once holding a dangerous letter. Rumors sprinted faster than runners. The pastor was a wizard. No, smugglers framed him. I saw angels pushing that cross, claimed a wide-eyed pilgrim. They looked a lot like village children, though. Yet something concrete survived beyond rumors, Dr. Kechi's report, stacks of witness testimony, and physical evidence of stolen goods. Officials froze the sanctuary's account, seized its remaining assets, and issued an arrest warrant for Reverend Mvula, alias unknown, whereabouts uncertain. Papa Keto whispered to Adana one staff record evening, a hyena may run fast, but dawn always catches its shadow. 12 Seeds for tomorrow. Under the mango tree, the rescued grain seed was divided among widows. Coins financed medicine for the lame and food for orphans. Adana started a ledger, transparent, dated, open for any elder to inspect. She named it the Open Hands Fund. Villagers who had once bowed to Mvula's polished shoes now queued to recover gifts or donate freely to the fund, seeing accountability displayed on a chalkboard each sunset. Dr. Kechi promised to return monthly to monitor health outcomes, not miracles, but real care. And Papa Keto. He carved a new flute from tamarind, its mouthpiece shaped like an upright cross, perfectly straight. 13. The necklace's quiet light. One night, alone by the dying cooking fire, Adana studied her mother's pendant. It no longer glowed, but the wood felt warm, like memory stopped into palm lines. She whispered, "Thank you, Mama. Your faith was the light we needed." In the silence, distant jackals laughed, a rough music that once would have chilled her. Now she only smiled. Even hyenas can't scare a girl who survived crooked crosses and python eyes. 14. Onward to part 4. As the first crescent moon rose, a sly grin returning to the sky, Papa Keto gathered the cousins and their allies. The python fled, the shepherd's cloak burned, but the story is not done. New threats slither where power once slithered. Prepare, the night the stars refuse to blink is coming. Adana squared her shoulders. Boma tightened his new leather sling. Dr. Kechi adjusted her glasses. They were tired, yes, but also brighter, like lamps trimmed at midnight, ready for the next watch. And somewhere, far beyond Ikemba, a man in crimson robes nursed bitterness, whispering incantations to shadows that remembered him well. 1. A festival painted in moonlight. The festival of first fruit was the biggest day in Ikemba after the rainy season's first rainbow. From sunrise the village throbbed like a giant drum. Girls twined crimson hibiscus into their braids, boys dragged reed mats to the square, elders hummed harvest songs that tasted of roasted maize and honey beer. Although the sanctuary of living water still smoldered from the recent fire, Reverend Mvula's followers had patched its courtyard with bamboo poles and calico banners. They renamed it, for one night only, the Court of Glory. Why? Because rumor said the pastor was back. Only 3 weeks earlier he had vanished into bush shadows with an albino python at his heels. Now merchants whispered that a tall man in crimson robes had been seen buying frankincense in the market, paying with silver-stamped 1974 kanzu, coinage rarer than snow. Pilgrims flocked again, hungry for miracle crumbs. At midday Adana threaded through the crush with Boma at her side. She carried a pouch of ground chalk to mark evidence if needed and the carved wooden cross that once glowed like sunrise. It had remained dark since the crypt collapsed, but tonight felt different, full as a cloud ready to burst. Papa Keto limped behind, leaning on his walking stick carved with tiny antelopes. The length of faded kudu horn, carved like a crescent moon, hung across his chest by a leather strap. "A shepherd can reshear sheep only if they forget the last cut," he muttered. "Let's make sure these sheep remember," Adana answered. 2. A stage of glittering promises. Near sundown the square filled until every wallflower became a thorn. Lanterns dangled from poles, turning dust into gold fog. A drumline of visiting youth pounded rhythm so fierce the ground quivered like a goat skin. Suddenly the drumming stopped. All heads pivoted toward the bamboo stage. Reverend Mvula strode out, robes new and brighter, spun copper-catching torchlight. Beside him marched 2 acolytes in ivory masks, carrying a chest carved with winged figures. The crowd hushed gasped. "People of Ikemba," his voice roared like far thunder. "The drought of doubt is over. Tonight heaven opens, and an angel of gold descends to bless every giver." Shouts of hallelujah spread the air. Mvula lifted the chest. Its lid snapped back. Inside shimmered a small statue, an androgynous figure with spread wings, beaten from thin hammered metal so polished the torches danced in its curves. Boma whispered, "Angel," or "shiny chicken tin." Adana elbowed him but couldn't help snorting. Mvula set the statue on a pedestal. "When the angel glows," he proclaimed, "your harvest will triple." He raised both arms, began to chant syllables laced with the same oily cadence Adana remembered from the crypt. Torches flared, sparking smoke. Somewhere in that smoke, a hiss snaked through the courtyard, the unmistakable slide of scales on clay. 3. Return of the White Shadow. Out from beneath the makeshift stage slithered the albino python. The crowd, from shrieking grandmothers to gaping toddlers, split faster than maize beneath a pestle. Yet the snake did not bite, it glided to the pulpit, coiling round its bamboo columns as if claiming a throne. Gasps turned into uneasy silence. The python's eyes glowed soft pink, reflecting touchfire like twin moons. Vula's chant sharpened. Adana heard a faint hum from under her shirt, the pendant warming. Boma touched his slingshot string. "Tell me we're not doing the hero thing in front of half of West Africa," he murmured. "Heroes are only people who run out of excuses," she replied. Papa Keto stepped forward, cloak fluttering. The kudu horn bumped against his ribs like an impatient friend. 4. Breaking the script. Adana climbed a side ladder up the stage, heart slamming her ribs like mallet on drum. Boma followed, cheeks pale but jaw set. Mvula ignored them at first, caught in ritual, but when Boma purposely kicked the pedestal, tilting the golden angel, the pastor spun. Who dares profane holy ground? Boma spread empty hands. Farm boy. Limited vocabulary. But I know a fake when I smell one. The congregation murmured. Some laughed nervously. Adana lifted her voice. People of Ikemba, did your widows eat after the last miracle? Did your blind see after an hour? Where are your goats? She swept her arm toward the outsider traders lining the square, men in cowhorn masks clutching crates just like the ones by the baobab. And why does a holy man need midnight smugglers? Vula's eyes narrowed, sparks hiding in his pupils. Lies from jealous children, he boomed. His hand sliced the air. Angel of gold, silence them. Wind whipped the torches, flames bent horizontal. A yellow shimmer rippled off the statue, an illusion expanding into the shape of a towering, winged figure taller than a camel. Gasps turned into screams. Boma hissed, its lantern light on smoked glass. Must be sheet of mica behind the stage. Whatever the trick, fear felt real. Even Papa Keto's shoulders tensed. Then, from within the swirl of light, Vula's voice commanded, "Python, guard the pulpit." The snake tightened, splitting bamboo with crack pops. 5. The horn of ancestral memory. Papa Keto stepped to the foot of the stage, raised the kudu horn to his lips, and blew. The sound was not human, a deep groan that seemed to ride every reed in the valley. Birds flurried from trees, dogs howled, even the python paused, tongue sliding slower. Adana felt her pendant blaze, this time not warm but hot, as if sharing the horn's call. She pressed it to her heart. Keto blew again, longer. Lanterns shuddered. Dust devils rose, whirling through the square. Women clutched children. Men held breath. The horn spoke a third note that quaked like mountains remembering their births. Vula staggered. His illusion flickered, the golden angel paused erratic, wings stuttering like a candle caught in wind. Across the courtyard, a tall iron torch tower, salvaged from the burned sanctuary wall, began to tremble. Adana's eyes widened. Embedded in its base was a remnant of the crooked stone cross, the upper arms, charred but intact. The quake loosened mortar, a hairline crack zigzagged up the stone. Papa Keto lowered the horn, voice steady. "Spirits of the faithful," he shouted, "rise and show us truth." 6. The ground gives up its secrets. With a thunderous pop the cross fragments split wide. From within spilled objects older than anyone alive, a clay chalice glazed deep indigo, a palm leaf Bible tied with goat sinew, a simple wooden shepherd's staff charred at one end. They clattered onto flagstones, glowing in torchlight like treasures that forgot themselves for a century. Adana shouted, "These belong to our first chapel, the humble one." Reverence is in service, not spectacle. The crowd pressed forward, peering at relics. Oldest villagers gasped recognition, stories their grandparents had murmured about the traveler's chapel, lost in a flood generations ago. Vula's lips curled. Pretty antiques cannot feed you, he sneered. But gold can. He stretched a palm over the statue. The angel brightened, but then sputtered, dimming to dull brass. The python hissed at Mvula, uncoiling, as if sensing a ship starting to sink. 7. Mirror of Courage. Boma slid beside Adana, whispering, "Stage rope, left side, if we drop that canvas, I bet we expose whatever makes the angel shine." She nodded. They darted left. A masked usher tried blocking them. Boma flicked a pebble with his slingshot, pinning the man's mask. The usher yelped and stumbled. Adana sliced the rope with Papa Keto's pocket knife. Whoosh, a curtain fell, revealing a lens rig, mirrors, oil lamps, reflective foil, clever but clumsy. The crowd roared angry surprise. Vula's eyes flashed murder. "Ungrateful goats," he barked. He seized the golden statue, raising it like a club. "I alone hold your future." The python chose that moment to drop from the pulpit, curling around his ankles. Vula froze. The snake's head rose to his chin, tongue flicking. For a breath the square held no sound. Then Adana's pendant flared white, she felt it choose, like a candle chooses the wick. The python's pupils constricted. It turned, not toward her, but toward open night. In one swift ripple it abandoned Vula, gliding off stage, over stone feet, and into high grass beyond lanterns. At that abandonment Vula cracked. He hurled the statue at Adana, it missed, clanging off bamboo. Crowd members closed in. The smuggler traders bolted. Chaos kaleidoscoped. 8. Collapse of a paper throne. Drums that had been silent resumed, but now villagers beat them like warning sirens. Women who once swooned at Mvula summons shouted curses. Men grabbed the chest full of coins, tipping it like rotten yam, returning gifts to rightful owners. Mvula backed to the stage edge, scanning for escape. Two of the older widows stepped forward, Mama Ino leading, a cooking spoon clenched like a sword. She raised it, voice shaking but fierce. "Your miracles starved my children. Tonight we eat truth instead." Mvula spun, darted behind a prop screen, only to bump into Papa Keto, horn still in fist. The elder's eyes were midnight calm. "Hyenas shouldn't run on broken legs," Keto said. He thrust the horn against Mvula's chest, not stabbing, only blocking. The pastor stumbled backward onto the debris of his own mirror rig, cutting his robe on broken glass. Village constables finally pushed through, binding his wrist with sisal rope. Every torch in the square guttered low, then surged bright again, as if exhaling relief. 9. A sky that finally blinked. The entire standstill happened so fast that, when quiet spread, children realized the stars overhead had been hidden by smoke. Now, as breezes cleared the sky, they shone again, blinking, winking, cheerful. One little girl pointed up and giggled, "Mama, the night is awake." Adana, heart still sprinting, felt her pendant cool. She pressed it to her lips in silent thanks to her mother, to courage, to whatever mysterious current had guided the python away from venom and into freedom. Boma collapsed on a barrel, panting. "Next festival let's just dance, okay?" She laughed, a raw, joyous bark. "Deal." 10. Sunrise over open hands. By dawn, Mvula sat under guard inside an old goat pen, poetic justice. Traders caught near the baobab confessed under questioning, stolen livestock had funded distant black market tinctures used to fake quick healings before symptoms returned. Dr. Ketchy's medical notes matched the confession like lead to jar. The village square, though littered with broken reflectors and spilled grain, pulsed with fresh hope. Volunteers sorted coins, returning property. The ancient chalice and staff were placed upon a reed mat, guarded by elders who spoke of reviving the modest traveler's chapel tradition, open air, no gilded statues, only shared bread and story. Papa Keto knelt, exhausted, to wipe soot from the relics. Adana helped. The chalice's glaze caught first light, glowing indigo. She whispered, "It's not gold, yet it feels richer." The old man smiled. Because wealth measured in compassion compounds faster than coins. 11. The last echo of the horn. That evening, with stars blinking normally, Ekemba's people gathered around a cooking fire larger than any before. Maize, yams, pawpaw slices, groundnut stew, dishes overflowed. Widows served first. Drummers struck a softer rhythm, children twirled, and Papa Keto lifted the kudu horn a final time. But instead of a battle note, he played a gentle tune, low and meandering, like river water telling bedtime secrets. When he finished, silence hugged the crowd, then applause burst like fireworks. Boma nudged Adana. "You know those city schools teaching leadership and ethics? They should invite Papa to lecture. He'd scare them into honesty," she grinned, "and then feed them." The horn now hung quiet, but villagers whispered that its call would live inside their chest, ready whenever another shepherd tried to dress in hyena fur. 12. Dawn's Promise. Later, under a sky now forever nicknamed Blinking Night, Adana stood by the field where they'd set the python's shed skin, returned to earth as an offering of forgiveness. She thought of enemies, of darkness using light as costume, of her own fear wearing courageous mask until courage grew real. Boma joined her, carrying 2 newborn goat kids, gifts from a grateful farmer. They watched the first sunrise stripe the savanna pink. "So," he said, stroking a kid's floppy ear, "what happens in part 5? "Part 5, she laughed. "I was hoping for the end. Heroes don't retire, cousin. Hyenas may limp, but new ones get born." She considered, then nodded. "Then we keep the horn polished and the pendant ready." Behind them, the square rang with hammers, villagers rebuilding, not another palace but a house of open hands, low walls, wide doors, no locks on the grain room, a chalkboard showing daily accounts. Truth sunlight dry, for everyone to see. And high on a pole, instead of a gilded angel, they mounted the crooked cross made straight, 2 simple timbers lashed tight, pointing not to gold but to open sky, where stars blink in honest rhythm. 1. A sunrise with no secrets. Morning came gently to Ekemba, the way a mother lifts a sleeping child. Soft winds stirred the elephant grass, roosters crowed with less arrogance, and the first light kissed the village with peace that felt earned. There was no drumbeat that morning. For weeks, a mysterious rhythm had haunted the early hours like an unseen hand knocking on reality's door. But now, the only sounds were birds greeting the sun and the occasional yawn of a village stretching after a long, troubled dream. The sanctuary of living waters, once a place of false miracles and golden lies, now stood repurposed and renamed. Its bamboo scaffolds were gone. Its cracked pulpit had been replaced with a simple stone table. And above its doorway, carved by a team of young volunteers, read the new name in bold letters. House of Open Hands. No more show. No more stage lights. Just truth, community, and shared bread. 2. The Council and the Cup. 3 days after the festival of first fruits, Papa Keto called a gathering under the mango tree near the square. He stood slowly, his knees creaked like an old door, and held aloft a small clay chalice, one of the relics found beneath the cracked stone cross. "This," he said, "once served the humble chapel that stood before all our noise. It carried water, not gold, not illusions. Just the kind of water that quenches thirst." He set the cup on the center mat, then looked out at the villagers, some seated on mats, others standing with arms folded in respect. "From this day forward, the House of Open Hands will belong not to one man, but to many hearts. We will have no single shepherd, but a council of elders, men and women, elected every 2 harvests. A buzz of approval rippled through the crowd. The council would handle all church matters, including donations. Every goat, every coin, every bag of cassava was to be recorded on a chalkboard, updated daily, visible to all. No one cheered wildly. They didn't need to. Instead, people nodded, and smiles bloomed like sunflowers after rain. 3. The Keeper of the Relics. Inside the new sanctuary, now little more than a large open hut with woven mats and some filtering reeds, Adana stood beside a glass case. Inside it lay 3 relics, the shepherd's staff, the clay chalice, and the faded palm leaf Bible, still tied with goat sinew. She had been chosen, unanimously, as keeper of the relics. Her duties weren't just to polish old things and scare children from touching them. No, her job was to remember. Every lie we fell for began with forgetting, she told a group of curious children seated in front of the case. We forgot that kindness is louder than speeches. That a loaf split in half is more holy than a golden statue. She pointed to the relics. These are not magic. They are reminders. Just like the calluses on your mama's hands. The children giggled, wide-eyed, already forming their own stories. At night, Adana would sit with her journal and write the true tale of what happened, the fall of the false pastor, the snake beneath the sanctuary, the mirror tricks, and how a simple horn and a warm pendant helped change everything. She named the book The Crooked Cross and the Wooden Light. She planned to make copies one day. So future generations never mistake glitter for grace, she whispered to herself one night beneath fireflies. 4. Grain for the empty. Wisdom for the fool. One of the first uses of the recovered wealth was simple but powerful, food. A storehouse was built near the old well, watched by rotating volunteers. Inside were bags of maize, millet, dried okra, and oil. Every widow, orphan, or struggling family had access. No questions. No strings. No miracle tax. The council voted to call it the People's Table. Boma, who once shrugged off every sermon and proverb, now helped keep the ledger. He'd even stopped making sarcastic jokes during meetings, mostly. Turns out math can feed mouths, he told Adana one day, scratching figures into a chalkboard. Never thought my worst school subject would become a weapon of justice. Welcome to adulthood, Adana grinned. Where even boredom has purpose. Meanwhile, Dr. Kechi returned every fortnight with her stethoscope, doing free checkups. She trained 2 local teens in basic health care, and the community began to rely on facts as much as faith. Even the goats seemed happier. Probably because no one was trying to donate them anymore. 5. What was lost and found. Not everything was perfect. Some villagers still missed Mvula's golden voice. Some doubted they had done the right thing exposing him. And no one knew where he'd gone. Rumors swirled that he was hiding in the next province, or living in a cave with 1,000 coins and a very confused python. But over time, the longing for magic shrunk beneath the comfort of consistency. Mama Ino, once starved and ignored, now helped lead the elder women's cooperative. She taught young wives how to preserve tomatoes with salt and how to keep goats out of yam plots. Before, we prayed for miracles, she said, now, we make them, with jars and muscle and honesty. Papa Keto, though older now, seemed brighter, like someone had dusted off his heart. He passed the kudu horn to the council, saying, use it only when truth sleeps too long. It was mounted above the grain store's door. 6. One final visit. Weeks later, as the dry season waned, a young boy named Ton approached Adana under the neem tree. Big sister, he asked, where did the snake go? Adana blinked. Which one? The white one, he said. The python that liked to listen. She looked out toward the savannah. It left, she said softly. It was trapped under lies. But maybe it was just a creature pulled into something it didn't understand. Will it come back? Adana smiled. I think. If it does, it will come to drink from the well. And then leave again. Like anything that doesn't belong to cages. Ton seemed satisfied. Then he asked, "Can you tell me the story again? About the crooked cross?" So she did. 7. The proverb that ended it all. That evening, the village gathered under an open sky. The stars blinked softly, their rhythm calm now, natural. No more smoke, no more illusions. Just the honest light of the world continuing. Adana stood on the platform, the same one once used to sell false hope. Now it held baskets of donated yams and pots of fresh soup. She cleared her throat. Silence fell. "We walked through shadows," she began, "but we returned with hands open. The story we carry now belongs to all of us." Papa Keto stood beside her, and with a steady voice he recited the closing proverb. "He who builds on truth, builds for tomorrow." The crowd echoed it. And somewhere out beyond the hills, where the savannah met the stars, a new breeze rose, carrying no drums, no hisses, no chants. Only birdsong. And the promise of another day. The end.